Now, in this technical demonstration, we're going to go through the process of installing Centrify Server Suite. Now, remember, there are two components to the Centrify Server Suite applications. The first is authentication and privilege, and the second is audit and monitoring. Now, they can be installed independently. In some cases, you may install them together. But we're going to go through the authentication and privilege installation during this technical demonstration. So I've already downloaded the product. I'm going to go ahead and move over to my folder where it's located. And I'm going to launch the installer. Now, as you can see here, we do have a couple of other components. We have the Centrify Agent for Windows and the Centrify Licensing Service. The Centrify Licensing Service will be installed during the installations of authentication and privilege as well as audit and monitoring. So it's not necessary to install that one independently unless you're going to move the licensing service to another system. So for this demonstration, we're going to simply click authentication and privilege. You will be prompted for the installation of Microsoft SQL Server Compact, which is required for the sudoers import feature. Now for this demonstration, we're not going to go through that process. I'm just simply going to click no. And then we'll go through the wizard. And once again, we'll click next and we'll accept the terms of our license agreement. From here, we'll put in our company name. And we'll click next. Now, as you can see here, there are four primary product components. The Centrify Administration, that's going to include the Active Directory users and computers property page extensions, the Access Manager, which is going to be the management console that we're going to be using to manage our zone structures, Group Policy Management extensions, and the Access module for PowerShell. The Centrify Utilities are going to include the Password Synchronization extension, the Zone Provisioning Agent, which we will install at this point, a Kerberized version of PuTTY, as well as the Centrify Licensing Service and the Centrify Reporting Service. Now, again, the only modification I've made for this installation is the installation of the Zone Provisioning Agent, which we'll get more into in a future technical demonstration. So from here, we'll simply click Next. We're going to accept the destination folder as the default, and we'll go ahead and click Next to begin the installation. Now from here, we can go through the process of configuring Centrify Reporting Services as well as the Centrify Zone Provisioning Agent, but we're not going to do that at this point. We'll keep those as separate technical demonstrations in the future, and we'll simply uncheck those boxes and we'll click Finish. Now you will receive this notification if you've installed the ZPA or Zone Provisioning Agent. If you don't configure it, it will default to a local system account. Now this is going to be okay because we will configure this later to use a domain administrative account for the management of the ZPA. So from here, we're going to go ahead and continue, and then we can exit the installer. Now from here, as you can see, we do have a new desktop shortcut for the Access Manager. We're going to go ahead and configure the Access Manager now. So we'll go ahead and launch it. And the first thing we'll be asked is to connect to a specific domain for us. As you can see here, we only have one domain controller, so we'll go ahead and leave the default. And I'm logged in as a domain administrator, so I don't need to add any additional credentials. We'll go ahead and click OK. And once again, we now have another wizard. This is for the Centrify Access Manager setup. We'll go ahead and click Next. As mentioned before, I'm logged in as a domain administrator, so I don't need specific credentials, so I'm going to use the current ones. Next, we'll need to generate the Centrify Recommended Deployment Structure, commonly called the Centrify OU. This deployment structure will create a series of OUs within the Active Directory environment. Now, this is an optional piece that does not have to be installed, but it's recommended so that you can maintain one location for all of the Centrify managed components. So we are going to go through this process. We'll go ahead and check the box, and we're going to generate the default deployment structure. You can customize it. We'll go ahead and click next. And now we'll need to choose a container of where that Centrify OU is going to start from. So when I click Browse, I'm simply going to click the GreenSafe Lab at the top, and it will create the Centrify zone structure right off of it. So we'll go ahead and click OK, and we'll click Next. And now as you can see, it's now complete. We'll go ahead and click Next. Now we'll need to install our licenses. Now again, you'll need the license key. That'll be the next step. But this is for the container of where the licenses are going to be held. So we'll go ahead and click Next. And as you can see here, all the user accounts in Active Directory will be granted the read permissions for that particular container, which in this case is the default of the licensing container under Centrify. So we'll go ahead and click Yes to continue. And now we'll need to add in our license key. Now, once I've added in the license key, I'll now need to specify a default container for my zones. Now, for this demonstration, we're going to leave it as the default, and we'll go ahead and click Next. We'll now need to delegate permissions. We'll need to grant computer accounts in the computer's container the permission to update their own account information. So yes, we'll leave that intact, and we'll click Next. Next, we can register the Active Directory Administrative Notification Handler. This is an optional piece. We don't have to do this. This will appear in the Active Directory Users and Computers snap-in. So we can go ahead and choose to use it or not. I'm going to go ahead and choose it, and I'll click Next. And then we have to set up our property pages. Once again, this is for Active Directory administration. I'll go ahead and add that as well. We'll click Next. And then we'll click Next again. And now we've completed the installation and the initial configuration of the Centrify Access Manager and Authentication and Privilege.